a very basic question is qualifications, right? If I, as someone who's probably just graduated, right, do I require any particular qualification or particular diploma, or particular degree for me to start my football analyst journey, or is it something that does not really need a degree? How did the Indian national team call-up come, right? Was it something that you applied for, or was it something that, national team approached you yourself? And what was the moment that when you realized, that this has happened, what was your feeling like in terms of just getting paid? Do you get paid as an analyst for the national team? And if you capture, how much does an analyst get paid? Even at an I-League level, I won't want exact, but even a ballpark, what an I-League analyst would earn when what an analyst with the national team would earn. मैं अगर आज के टाइम में प्रीमियर लीग को कंपेयर करूं और ISL को कंपेयर करूं, right? Does approach to analysis differ a lot in both the leagues because the quality varies a lot, or because analysis के principles same and does it remain the same?
It's a lot to do on your soft skills, on how you talk, how you talk to the players. Because today I cannot go up to a Chencho Glaston who's top player of Bhutan, played multiple countries, and say ki aapka left foot acha nahi hai, you should just use your right foot. That doesn't make any sense, And if I come and tell him that, okay, you tried to cross from your left foot 10 times, 9 of them was not successful. You crossed 15 times with the right foot and 14 of them were successful. So I'm giving him, like objective feedback.
So when your CV already has the likes of the Indian national football team and some of the biggest clubs in India in Kerala Blasters and Minerva, I think it's fair to say that Anand, you're one of the top football analysts in the country. For people, again, welcome everyone to Football Unplugged. And I have, as I've already mentioned, one of the topmost football analysts in the country in Anand Vardhan. Anand, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor having you.
Thank you, Satvik, for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be good.
Perfect. Anand, I think the $1 million question we just get away from the beginning. What does a football analyst actually do?
Okay, so it's I do get a lot of that question. So in a nutshell, the job of an analyst is to basically try to remove the subjectivity from the sport. So that is exactly maybe how I express my work to someone who knows the sport but doesn't extensively follow it. So when, let's say, for example, when you say that you like a player, or you like a team, the team is playing well. Now, that's where we come in. So it's our job to tell why the team is playing well, or why that player is, playing well or not playing well. So basically, it's more about trying to remove the subjectivity and making the game more objective.
Understood. And again, I think we'll discover a lot of different layers to what a football analyst does. But I think, Anand, one question I think that I ensure that I ask everyone that I thought of interview is, where did football start for you? And what is the earliest memory that you think you'd have of football, whether playing, whether watching? What is the first distinct memory that you'd have of the sport?
I pretty much started, the way everybody starts, we just fall in love with the act of kicking a ball, when we are so young and somebody exposes us to the game, and then it becomes sort of our personality, I would say. And that is how it started for me as well. I started off with playing when I was really young. I was always into sports, a little bit of cricket, a little bit of football, always trying my hand out at different sports, maybe volleyball, call it table tennis. But yeah, like if you would say, when did I start actively pursuing it? Probably when I was, around 14, 15, when, the first memory I can recall is we had school selection trials for the school team, and I failed miserably at it. So that was my first memory, and then because of that, maybe I think that was sort of a push that, okay, I have to be there next year. And then for the whole year, I was training and, watching YouTube and, learning from other players, going out, trying my hand, and just building that relationship with the ball. And that is more or less, how everybody starts. And then, of course, the glitz and the glamour of the Premier League, of course, because the Premier League has an amazing coverage in India and across the world, of course, and that's how started getting into the game, knowing the players, and watching football extensively, playing football extensively, and yeah, that was pretty much my lifestyle, for the entire of my teenage. Eat, sleep, football, and repeat.
And I think you said it correctly, right? That everyone, I think, especially in India, right? They start playing football because, it's cricket, and, then this moment you like, yeah, football, it's such a fascinating sport. And, even personally for me, when I saw Lionel Messi for the first time, right? I was like, man, I would love to do something like this, right? And I very distinctly remember I was this, very, very, very fat kid, very overweight when I was in my class six, right? And I was just wowed by what he could do. And I knew, if I have to be in the team, there's this fascination with playing with the for your school team, right? And then, I think I usually say that particular, point in life, I think brought me here. So I think, I think when you say that, football just comes out at probably 14, 15 to every Indian, which is slightly unfortunate, but I think that is the reality for people of our age, especially.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's nice way you put it. Yeah.
yeah.
We start off a little bit late when you're already like 14, 15, but everybody has their challenges.
Perfect. So, Anand, usually to transition hota hai na to, let's say, from a playing sort of aspiration to probably, doing something else in the sport happens when you have that realization when you're probably 18, 19 that yaar, ab main shayad professional footballer nahi ban sakta, right? It's probably my time. So, at what point of time did you sort of realize कि यार शायद अब player वाली चीज नहीं हो सकती, right? I might not, probably not be as good as some of the other players, or just probably I'm late. So आपके लिए वो realization कब आई थी, and when did you sort of, have this thought कि यार probably, football analyst is something that you can explore?
Okay, so to answer your like first question, I think I realized it fairly early. It's like not saying that I'm a super lousy player, but like by the time I was like 16 or 17, just finishing my 10th standard, at that time I had already realized that if you have to be a professional, by the time you're 17 or 18, you have to be pushing for that professional contract. And for that you need to be, and back then this was like early last decade, close to 2011, 12. And at the time, we didn't have ISL, and like not a lot of academies that used to give so much exposure. There was, of course, TFA, and everybody knew about it. But then again, getting into TFA was not easy at all. So at that time, I think I realized that already being a professional footballer is going to be very, very difficult. Even if I try to get a professional contract when I'm like 20, 21. But that didn't actually stop me from actively pursuing the sport. Trying to get better at it. Every single day, training. Like you said, wasn't so much fit as compared to what a professional footballer should be like. But that didn't stop me, or shouldn't stop anyone from actively pursuing the game. Because there's a sense of happiness attached to it, I believe, that playing the game brings to you. And yeah, it didn't stop me, but I had realized that, okay, I might not make it as a professional, but I will not, give up the sport altogether. I'll try to play at the highest level that I can. And, that led me to playing university games, and then, played lower divisions of super division in Bangalore, where I was doing my engineering, degree, and try to get sort of like a semi-professional contract. And yeah, I don't think so, like even now, like coming to Bhutan, and there was a futsal league happening, which was like an open tournament, and then just go there and register yourself and play. And I always try to get as many minutes on the pitch as possible, because that is, after all, the best thing about the sport. And coming to your next question, so this was more or less in my second to third year of engineering degree, where I really had some good how do I say it, like advice from seniors, let's say, that people who had just graduated and started working. They said that LinkedIn is the place to be, and then so I was like, okay, just go out on LinkedIn. And then this was the COVID period, so we had a little bit of time on our hands. And I just reached out to a couple of people, and just I wanted to reach out to people who had done engineering and then who were pursuing something in sports. And by that time I was actively trying to reach out and try to see where and what I can contribute in the sports industry. And that's where I bumped into Meet. And Meet is a very good friend now, and he was a performance analyst for Northeast United and Odisha FC previously. So that's how I got started. He exposed me to this world of football analytics. He said, you have an interest in the game, you understand the game better than a little bit more than a fan. So just read out material, reach out to. So there's a website called Total Football Analysis. It's basically run by this amazing gentleman called Mr. Chris Darwin, and I believe he's from somewhere in Europe, maybe Denmark or somewhere. So he gave me my first break. Like he gave me an assignment. Okay, you analyze a game and you give us a tactical analysis of what happened in the game. He taught us some of the tools that he taught me some of the tools that that I could use to reach out to give out my work. And that is how my journey started. Just writing out my material, and that's how more or less every analyst starts. There is a huge space right now. Actually, this is like 5 years ago. So right now there's a big space for sports analytics in on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And people still, when they have to like start off, I always recommend them to like just keep writing. What you think might provide value, and then that's how I got started as well.
Anand, so before moving ahead into your journey as well, right? I want to understand the background as well, right? Because I think for a lot of Indians who are fascinated with the idea of being involved in sports, I think finances and also the family background, I think that plays a key, very important role, right? So tell me about your background. Where do you come from? How were the parents always supportive of you, willing to do something in sports? Because from my personal experience, I've had, probably an opportunities of joining an academy, but parents being very hesitant, football में कुछ future नहीं, and this is probably 10 years ago, right? So what was your background? What was your, conversation with parents, especially, because a lot of 18, 19-year-olds would want to do this, would be watching this. So what was your conversation like?
Okay, that's a very nice question, no, Satvik. So ऐसा है कि भाई, let's see, like we have to understand that there is a different kind of background that our parents come from, right? And we have to acknowledge it. It's not out of the blue कि वो कुछ बोल रहे हैं that is not completely right, or ऐसा नहीं है कि we know more or they know more. It's just that your idea about anything is like based on your experiences. So let's say अगर मैं छोटा था and somebody would in my family like becomes an engineer and is making 6-figure salary and having a very good life, so automatically that sort of like a bias comes. ये correct way. This is how you should get along with it. And maybe when we are younger, we don't understand that a lot. And ऐसा नहीं है कि I didn't have like complete deterrence or complete support. But they were a little bit skeptical, which I believe, every parent would be, because it is an uncharted territory. And now you see, like a lot of Indian players making, 7 figures, 8 figures a year. But 10 years ago, this was not the case. And how many people, 10 years ago, or how many people your parents would have known that, okay, he's a professional footballer, living the life, unless and until you're like very, very, deep into the sport. So that is, again, that's something that you have to let your parents understand, and then you have to understand them a little bit as well, that everybody has their own set of thinking. Okay, but once like I graduated, of course, so I had a couple of offers in my hand. I was working in an MNC, and then that is when I got an offer from Minerva Punjab to come there and do an internship and see how it goes from internship. So it was not a fixed like a full-time contract, but it was like, okay, you do an internship, and then if we like you, we give you a contract. So yeah, I sat down with my parents. I told them, like, let me take this opportunity, and I want to explore this side of the sport. Then I believe I was very, very like, I'm very, let's say, lucky in terms of I was not in a situation of the family at that moment where I had to be like the sole earner of bread, or a bread earner, if you could call it. So in that case, I was really lucky that my parents were supportive, and they were not, they still are supportive, but they were not in a stage where they had to depend on me. And I believe that played a big role in me transitioning from working in an MNC to football. But it's not necessary that everybody's journey belongs in this way. And at the end of the day, like मैं ऐसा सोचता हूँ कि staying connected to the game is most important. Even if you are like a grassroots coach, or like yourself, trying to like create content, or just reading about the sport, or just coaching random people, random kids, and keeping the game or the spirit of the game alive, in my opinion, is like the most important.
And I think especially with our generation, I think like friend ने मुझे बड़ी अच्छी चीज बोली थी, and something that has always stayed in my mind. I think जो रोटी खाने वाला बैटल, आई थिंक हमारे पेरेंट्स ने ऑलरेडी लड़ लिया है, राइट? कि अब ऐसा मोमेंट बहुत ही, एटलीस्ट फॉर अस, राइट, कि बहुत कम होएगा कि ऐसा कि हमको रोटी और छत के लिए स्ट्रगल करना पड़ेगा. सो आई थिंक वी आर वेरी प्रिविलेज इन दैट सेंस. वी कैन प्रॉब्ली our appetite to take risks with our career, right? Because no one is dependent on us for food and shelter, right? So I think एक बहुत बड़ा factor ultimately रह जाता है. But yes, I think moving from this to why we are here and talking about the analyst bit, what would you say, Anand? You said that Minerva ने आपको contract offer किया. How did that happen? And if if terming it as a big break or your first break, I'm not sure if that would be the right term. But how did that happen? And what would be your first break in terms of into the industry, into the field?
I believe I would like to call it as my first break, and I'm extremely, again, very, very grateful to Mr. Bajaj, who gave me this opportunity. And he's like an amazing person. If you are just want to talk about football and get to learn from him, because he has this like a wealth of knowledge, that
And
obsession, yes. And that is like something that I really, really enjoyed working under him, because there were, of course, like days on nights or weekends, it didn't matter. We were into it, trying to formulate strategies, trying to help out the team, talking about football. And then he treats you like a younger brother to all the people who are working under him. So yeah, if you want to call it that, maybe yes, that would be my first break into the industry. And then it didn't stop me from like exploring other opportunities, which I eventually got. But yeah, that would be like the first thing that got into me. And working in that academy, working in that environment of Minerva, it exposed me to multiple fields of like inside the sport. Jaise I was working under Mr. Anwar Ali, who is like a former Indian international. I was working under Mr. Coach Fermin D'Souza, who's like a former coach who's won the SAF, and wealth of knowledge, and a lot of other people who were there, and it wasn't just about football. It was about different aspects of it. Let's say the sports science aspect of it, the scouting aspect of it, how the tournaments function, how the registrations and other things, the management side of the clubs and the academies happen. How do we recruit people? How do we recruit players? And how do we reach out in terms of having a wider base of scouting to get the best talent into the academy, and then having a formulated plan of 5 years, 7 years, 10 years to like nurture the kids to become like top players, and then watching the top players compete in different state leagues, and how the footballing ecosystem in India works from the inside. I think that was a really an eye opener that I got working at Minerva.
And I think, I've been to a couple of clubs, but when I first entered Minerva's Academy, there was this entire vibe about that place that sort of, just oozes out football. I was there at around, I remember it was around 9:30 at night. I was there for an interview with Himanshu, right? And there were people, young kids, very young kids, still practicing, talking about football. And it was late night, right? And I was like, yeah, there is a reason why a lot of players, come out of this ecosystem. But yes, I think especially when it comes to people who are not really aware about the ecosystem, a lot of a very basic question is qualifications, right? If I as someone who's probably just graduated, right, do I require any particular qualification or particular diploma, particular degree for me to start my football analyst journey, or is it something that does not really need a degree?
So, in my opinion, I think having a certain qualification obviously helps, but having said that, that does not mean that you need to have a qualification. At the end of the day, it's more about your let's say desire to learn and work, and it's different for different countries. So let's say if I want to start out as a football analyst in the UK, I will probably need to have a bachelor's or a master's in performance analysis, which is fairly common in terms of the ecosystem of United Kingdom as compared to India, because in India, it's recently come up that colleges are offering diploma in performance analysis or diploma in sports analysis or stuff like that. But having said that, it's more about what you bring to the table with your work rather than with your qualifications. So when I started out, of course, I had a diploma in performance analysis from one of the sort of like a startup in India based, which was called DAP back then. And then that is how I presented my work on LinkedIn, on Twitter, to different people, and that's how people reached out to me. Okay, we like your work, we want to see more of it, and from so on. So I think it obviously helps, but it's not a necessity.
Understood. But again, I think for someone who would probably want to pursue or want to join a place, you would rather recommend them having a professional degree, right?
Yes. So there are a lot of platforms that you can reach out on. There are a lot of platforms actually. One is called PFSA, which is like the Professional Football Scouts and Association. They provide you certificate courses. They provide you diplomas. There are a lot of master's degrees you can do from foreign universities. There is a master's degree from Sports Authority of India that happens in National Institute of Sport in Patiala. That you can do. It's a 1 year, postgraduate diploma course. And there are other like Professional Analysis Association, again, company based out of the UK that provides certification courses. So there are a lot of places where you can start off as experimenting what is right, and then a lot of reading of material, because there is a certain gap between how a fan views the game and how a coach or analyst views the game. You have to be up to date with the certain terminologies. You need to be up to date how the game is advancing. You need to have a little bit of idea about coaching. You need to have idea about scouting. You need to have idea about how to use the different softwares and tools. So the more knowledge you have, it's easier to get started. And world of internet, everything is right at our fingertips. We just need to go and explore it.
Now, Anand, talking more deeply or about the profession, right? So what does the day-to-day in your role looks like, right? Let's say probably in some of your prior roles with Kerala Blasters or with the Indian football team or Sudeva for that matter, right? At a day-to-day, probably at an early level, right? What are the day-to-day job for a football analyst look like? And in terms of there's bound to be collaboration between the head coaches, between probably the players. So how does that entire ecosystem work from a football analyst standpoint?
Okay, so to answer this question, I will just like divide football analysis into different aspects. One of them is video analysis. When you are managing and like improving and distributing the video database of training, matches, opponents. Then comes data analysis, where you are actively tagging matches of opponents, and then again making database and providing it to the coach. And then the third is basically sometimes called physiological analysis, where you are trying to collaborate with the S&C coach or with the physiotherapists. Okay, so and you could add a little bit of scouting to it as well. But all of this is very like dependent upon the head coach. And the way the head coach wants to use you is how your day is going to look like. So if let's say, and mostly it depends upon the schedule. Let's say we are playing a match on Saturday, and then we are playing a next match on let's say next Sunday, right? So as soon as the match gets over, you need to you already have an idea as you're working with the head coach or what the coach is looking for. What the coach wants from you or from the match, and you just have a chat with the coach and see what is the certain terminology that he uses and what are the things that he needs from the match to watch the match again, and sometimes your own feedback on how the game went and what could have been different. So you give sort of like a post match report, which consists of again video and data, which is pre-decided. So basically, what happens is when you start working, beginning of the season, you decide certain metrics, which are called as KPIs, key performance indicators. Okay, so we decide in terms of what we are looking for, and that is again what I said in the beginning of our chat. How we are trying to remove the subjectivity and bring more objectivity into our workflow. We have decided some key performance metrics which are going to decide how the team played, irrespective of the scoreline. And of course, scoreline is again a metric of how we played, but it again depends on sometimes, the scoreline doesn't tell us the full story. You could have played really, really well and you could have lost 1-0. So that doesn't mean that you go out and change everything. Or you could have, played extremely, extremely average and you still win by 2 goals. So that doesn't mean that you're doing everything right. So based on key performance indicators, key performance metrics, that is where the analyst comes in to provide more and more data and more videos in terms of how the match went. And during the course of the week, based on that, it's up to the head coach that they decide, okay, if maybe our build-up from the back was not the best, because we have data that we tried to build up, 17 times and we failed 15 times. So which means we need to train build up from the back. So that is how the coaches will decide the whole week's schedule. And then we prepare for the next game, which again, we refer it to as match day and match day -1, match day -2, and match day -3. So approximately somewhere at match day -3 or 2, we start looking at the opponents, the next opponents that we are going to play. And then it's job of the analyst again. And, if you are at a bigger setup, you have multiple analysts working for the same team. So the opposition analyst maybe provides an in-depth opposition report, maybe directly to the head coach. Again, depends on if the head coach wants it directly or if he gives you enough freedom to provide it, present it to the players. So in the opposition report, you provide what is the kind of team that we are going to face, who are the key players, and what is the style of football, and how the season has been, what are some things that we should look at, and what are some weaknesses maybe we could exploit. And we go into the next cycle of the week of match preparation. So that is more or less how the work looks like.
So Anand, you said that या तो एक कोच है, वो सीजन के पहले आप ऑब्जेक्टिव आप अपने KPI सेट करते हो. So usually does it happen that throughout the entire season that is the one sort of holy grail that you look up to, or is it more match week to match week specific, wherein match week mein this is probably what the opposition might line up, so match week to match week specific, or does it all completely depend on the coach? Because sometimes the coach is very particular. This is the system that I want to play. I don't want to move away from the system, right? And some coaches are probably more कि यार opposition ये करती है, opposition की weakness है. So how does all of this work?
So I think you answered it, pretty well yourself. That completely depends on the coach, and for an analyst or for an assistant coach, which I was at Blasters. So it's very important for us to understand कि ये team head coach की है. A lot of times I hear other analysts or other assistant coaches, they complain about the fact that the head coach, doesn't take my opinions or, doesn't, do as I want him to do. But we also have to understand that he's responsible or she's responsible for the behavior of the team on the field, and not just in terms of like behavior, but in terms of aspects of playing. And that is where we need to come in and respect the fact that it's their team and it's not, our team. We are there to support them. And that is one thing that, again, is different for different coaches. Of course, there are some methodologies, some principles of play that we call it, which do not change. The principles of play, like having your defense compact in situations of defending, having trying to attack from, making the pitch as big as possible, try to attack from wide areas. These are like simple concepts, delaying the opponent when you're defending, covering for your teammate, and, supporting your teammate when you have the ball. Principles of play are the same irrespective of, whether you're playing in Argentina or you're playing in India, for that matter. But tactics, of course, and the approach towards these principles of play change from coach to coach. And it's up to the support staff to try to understand. Also, it's up to the head coaches to try to make the support staff understand their ideology better. And that is where, everyone has to be on the same, direction of thinking. And that is where I believe that, it's the foundation of successful teams. If you have a strong, successful background staff, which is aligned towards the idea of head coach, then everybody is, more than willing to give their 100%.
Moving probably aside from this is just one question that came up in my mind. I genuinely want to ask it. So when you talk about principles of play, Anand, right? So, अगर आप एक Western, South American, European compare करोगे in terms of just its evolvement, right? From let's say the age of 5 to probably 15, 20 is very different from in evolvement of an Indian player जिसने शायद खेलना ही 13 साल में शुरू किया, right? So does it affect these principles of play? Because Manu, for example, building from the back, right? It's very important you're very comfortable on the ball, how your first touch is. And it happens during those development years of 8 to 40. So does that come into the picture when you're sort of understanding or, planning, yeah, this is going to be my focus, कि मैं build up from the back करूँगा, या मैं, probably long ball dependent, target man dependent रहूँगा. How does all of this sort of work?
So, iske liye, Satvik, we have to have a little bit of deep dive into development of a player. Okay, so again, it depends from individual to individual, but in my opinion, again, the development of a player is divided into 3 categories. One is technical, one is tactical, one is psychological, and some people like to add the mental aspect of it as well, which we necessarily don't want to ignore. So maybe 4 aspects of it. So when you talk about technical, it's more about how the player is with the ball, like you said, the first touch, and there is, again, so if I want to break down in a more layman terms, let's say if you want to solve a quadratic equation in maths, you need to know how to add 2 numericals, right? So to have, to be able to play as a holding midfielder in a 4-3-3, the basic is you need to understand how to receive the ball, and how to pass the ball. And, how should your body position be when you receive the ball? Or, how you should be aware of your surroundings, keep scanning around where your opponents are, where your teammates are, which part of the foot to, connect with the ball so that the ball stays on the ground or, lobs overs directly to your teammates' foot. So breaking the game down in our early years, again, it depends on where we are grown up. Of course, there is a little bit of bias on where you've grown up and how quality coaching you've been exposed to. But these kind of things come early. The earlier you are, the easier it will be for you to learn how to receive a ball, how to pass a ball, and how to have different kinds of like an inside shot or an outside shot, how to chest the ball down, how to head the ball down. So these are the aspects what come into the technical aspects of the game. So that is where you as a coach or you as an analyst or you as a, someone who's trying to help a small, player or a young player understand, then you have to understand and see the level of technical ability. Then the level of, comes the tactical ability, and even maybe before it would be the physiological ability. So let's say even if you are very good technically, but you cannot, move around. So football is, again, if you break it down, it's a very anaerobic sport. So more than 70% of the sport is, us running around. And most of the time, players do not work with the ball. So if your physical fitness is not at the top level, the physiological aspect of it comes down. And again, if you have to prepare like an individual development plan, IDPs we call it, then you have to see where the player is at the current level, and we again call it the elite level. Elite is where the best of the best play, and what is the difference and where the difference lies. So let's say a kid comes at you and your academy at 11 or 12 years old and he's very good technically. So it means that you need to work on his physiological aspect. on what kind of a training, what kind of nutrition, and what kind of lifestyle he needs to have to develop. And again, more or less having that tactical aspect on what and where he needs to do in what kind of system that he needs to play in.
Okay. So, is it fair to say that as a football analyst, you are probably involved in all the four aspects, or is it just probably the latter side of things? All the four aspects.
All the four aspects, yes. More or less, yes.
Okay, Anand, I think this was it. I was very intrigued about this entire thing. Moving on, Anand, I would love to know, I would want to know more about your journey. You sort of got into Sudeva at a time. I'm assuming Sudeva was playing in the I-League, right? If I'm not wrong. Yes. And
Yes.
then you had your journeys with Kerala Blasters and probably as everyone's lifelong dream of working with the Indian national team. Can you tell me that journey from Sudeva to the Indian football team? And at each club or at the national level, what was your exact role that you were doing and what did your day-to-day look like during all of those individual roles?
Okay. So maybe this takes a little bit of longer time,
No. I think I will all years.
Okay, so when I joined Sudeva, we were just about to start the 2021-22 season, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 2021 and 22 season. We were in the I-League. We had finished, I think, fourth from the last, I think seventh the previous season. And we were just about to, we were invited. The Delhi League was going on. So our reserve team was playing there. And that's how I got in to Sudeva as I got in there as an analyst, of course. But I'm again very, very grateful to Mr. Anuj Gupta, Mr. Vijay Hakari, the co-owners of Sudeva, who gave me this opportunity to be there and learn from different people. And Mr. Chencho, of course, which was a technical director, and he was filling in for the head coach role in the Durand Cup. So worked there for during the Delhi League. Worked with Mr. Chencho as an analyst, and he appreciated my work, and I think I understood what he wants from an analyst or from the team. So it was like a bridge. I was like a bridge between the head coach and the players. Okay, where I was not just giving my opinions or my observations to the players, but I was sort of giving what Coach Chencho wants from the players. And that was sort of like a good relationship that we built. And he was more than happy to include me in his background staff that went to the Durand Cup. We went to Guwahati to play Northeast. We played the Indian Army team. We played Kerala Blasters over there. Results not weren't up to the level, but it was a good experience, good learning experience for us, good learning experience for the players, and that's how we got prepared up for our I-League season. When I-League came around, we had a Japanese coach coming in, Mr. Ashushi Nakamura. And then again, I was sort of like the second assistant and analyst to him because, he was more than willing to give me responsibilities. And that is, the whole season went by. Mr. Nakamura left halfway through because of, not the results not coming in. Then Mr. Shankalal came in, Shankalal coach again. A very well-known personality, very experienced coach in the Indian football circuit. So different experience working under him, getting to learn from him how he manages the team, what he wants from an analyst, what he wants from the players. And eventually during the end of the I-League season, got a national call-up from the national team, of course. And went there as an analyst again, worked with the women's national team, senior women's national team under Mr. Thomas Dinerby, who was, I think, again, a brilliant personality, an amazing personality, very good, footballing brain, more than 40 years of experience in top-level football, played more than 300, 400 games in top, level of Swedish football for Hammarby. And he was, again, I would love my time to be, back with him again, because there were days, we were just sitting and talking about football and, talking about players and, different styles and what are the options and, how different styles impact his methodology of training, why he's putting a certain kind of training, in this way, and where he thinks these players need development and how we can go ahead, working towards the development of Indian women's football. And I think that was a good learning experience for me. where I
Alan,
could take as
just,
much. Yes, yes, yes,
just to
please, please,
cut you
please.
in. So, number one, how did the Indian national team call up come, right? So, was it something that you applied for, or was it something that,
Yes.
national team approached you yourself? And what was the moment that when you realized, that this has happened? What was your feeling like? What was the discussion with the family? Did you finally sort of think you probably made it? What was your sort of individual feeling, and how did that all, happen?
This is something that I applied for the Indian national team analyst position. There was an opening on the website, and I just put in my CV, and Mr. Velu contacted me, who is the team manager, and he's head of department, I think, sporting department now. So he contacted me. We had a scheduled an interview with a few other people, and then I think they liked what I had done so far, and the interview went well, and that is where I got my call up for the first camp with senior women's. We were going to play the friendlies against Nepal early 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, early 2023. Those friendlies were in Chennai, and yes, so that's what happened. And then I gave this news to the people in power in Sudeva, and they were extremely happy about it. Of course, my parents were also happy about it. Okay, like it was a big step up. But for me personally, in my opinion, I still don't think I've made it. There is, of course, different challenges, and in my opinion, it doesn't matter where you are. You need to put your head down, and you need to work so that your work talks. So at the end of the day, I was there. I was not there to. Okay, maybe it took a little bit of time to just have that feeling that okay, I have national team players that who I used to look up as kids. When I was in my first year of engineering, I believe Baladevi had signed for Rangers. And that was like it's like wow. Now I'm like speaking to Baladevi. So that was like maybe it took a day to sink in, but then in my opinion, I think it's more about how quickly you get the cloud off your head and you get to work.
And Anand, if you don't mind me asking, I think in terms of just getting paid, do you get paid as an analyst for the national team? And if you capture how much does an analyst get paid, even at an I League level? I won't want exact, but even a ballpark, what an I League analyst would earn when what an analyst with the national team would earn.
Okay, so this again depends completely on the club you're working at and the kind of CV that you have had. With the national team, I would say it's a standard pay of let's say a corporate gig with an MNC. So it's not extremely over the top, but then it's not not something that you would not be happy with. And of course, the perks come along with it. You're getting to travel, and then your stay and food is covered, and then yeah, you're working for the nation at the end of the day. So it's not bad at all, I would say. And with an I League team, I think again depends on what level you're working at. Are you working at the top leagues or top teams in the league, or the bottom teams in the league? Depending on what kind of experience that you're bringing in to the team, what's your CV like, and it's very variable. Depending on it might look like a starting package from an MNC that you would get. It might also look like someone who's extremely well off in the multinational industry. So it varies, and it's depending on what kind of profile that you're bringing in.
So let us assume if I'm working as an analyst for, let's say, Inter Kaki, who's probably one of the well-off clubs in the I League right now,
Yes.
we can assume probably one of the top clubs in I League right now. Do you think if like 60, 70K a month is a good ballpark that I can assume that an analyst would make?
Again, so that depends on multiple factors. So let's say you have worked with the head coach who's coming in previously, so then you have a little bit of, if the head coach really wants you, then you have a little bit of leverage on your side. That okay, the head coach, I know the head coach knows what an analyst should be doing, so let's work for him, explaining the new analyst, how or what I need. So that again gives you a leverage to negotiate. And then more or less, I think the number that you have said is achievable, but again, it's depending on your profile, what you are bringing on the table and how the club basically values you.
Understood. Okay. Anand, then came Kerala Blasters, one of the biggest clubs in Indian football, currently playing in the Indian Super League. So how did Kerala Blasters happen? What was your role with Kerala Blasters? What did your day-to-day look like there? So a bit on that.
Okay, so if you remember, we were playing Durand Cup with Sudeva, and that's where we faced the Blasters reserve team. And I just stayed in touch with the head coach who was there at the time, and he's still there, Mr. Tomasz Tosh. And he's from Poland. He's been in India for more than 4-5 years. He was the assistant coach for Coach Kibu Vikuna, when they won the I League with Mohun Bagan back in 2019. And that's how we got talking. And as my stint with the Indian national team, was not really about to come to an end, but my current contract was about to get over, and I was just got an information that they're looking for an assistant coach for the under-23 team, and an assistant coach plus a performance analyst. So I said, okay, why not? So this is something that anyways I've been doing, that eventually you end up, because we all love to be on the grass, trying to help out with the markers, with the cones, with the balls, and trying to soak in as much as possible of the football sessions. So I just had a word with Coach Tomasz. He said, I would like to see a little bit of your work, and then we had a fruitful discussion, and then he was more than willing to let me join his team. So had a good discussion with the football director, Mr. Carolis over there. Had a good discussion with the academy director, and they were more than happy to have me. So yeah, good. Things fell into place, and then found myself in Kochi.
Okay, and what exactly did your day-to-day look like there? Because you were, in multiple hats then, right? So what were your day-to-day job role look like?
So it wasn't a lot different from the roles that I had at different clubs and different places, of course. So again, depending on the schedule we are in, if we are training, then I would help out with the training. Depending on what coach, the head coach wants. If he wants me to take little parts of the training, I would design the training sessions myself, and go ahead with it where he would just have an eye for as an observer, as he would just be observing. Other times he would be leading the session, I would be observing or helping him out with setting up everything. Then came training analysis, then came match analysis, the usual day of an analyst, how it looks like, talking to the players, giving them more detailed feedback on what could be improved, what can we work towards upon, maybe having some individual sessions with the players, having some gym sessions with the players where we are trying to work on their agility, or trying to work on their exercises, plyometric exercises, basically trying to improve players in a systematic way. That is how my day-to-day used to look like.
And in terms of, let's say a match week, right? And let's say you identify opposition's weaknesses, right? So was it usually you who gave the sessions to your team, or was it the coach who sort of decides that, or again, is that dependent on the club and the coach?
Yeah, more or less it's dependent on the club and the coach. But usually what happens is, once the head coach is comfortable with you, they let you take the sessions yourselves. And mostly if you are new to the role, it will be like you are taking the opposition analysis session where you are presenting your findings on the opponents, and then match feedback usually comes from the head coach, because that makes more sense if I'm not mistaken in that case. So that is how it used to look like earlier in Blasters as well. But eventually, sometimes coach used to take match feedback. Sometimes we both used to give our own feedback, and sometimes it was more of a generic feedback than a detailed one, where we would be looking at a very standard metrics, like the second balls. Let's say when a long ball comes in and the opponent wins it. So what are you doing when you're fighting for that second ball? So some very generic explanations also sometimes, and sometimes talking individually to the players. Like having that video database and database of the whole matches. What could be right, what could be better, and giving them more generic, feedback on their performances.
So, Anand, like let's say if I'm a football analyst, right? What metrics do I measure for me कि यार मैं एक अच्छा analyst हूँ, या how does the coach analyze you? Because a lot of times your work is dependent on what other people do on the pitch, right? So how can someone gauge that ये अच्छा analyst है या ये थोड़ा सा underperforming analyst है? How are your reviews done? Because I assume it to be very difficult because it is very dependent on what other people do.
I mean, good question. Good question. So, इसमें Satvik, I would say कि first thing is how how valuable you are to the team, और आपका feedback players कितना value करते हैं. Because also I would say is a lot to do on your soft skills, on how you talk, how you talk to the players. Because today I cannot go up to a Chencho Glaston who's top player of Bhutan, played multiple countries, and say कि आपका left foot अच्छा नहीं है, you should just use your right foot. That doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
And if I come and tell him that, okay, you tried to cross from your left foot 10 times, 9 of them was not successful. You crossed 15 times with the right foot and 14 of them were successful. So I'm giving him, like objective feedback
Correct.
of how and what he can improve upon. और मैं जाके उसको ये नहीं बताऊंगा कि आप बॉल को किक कैसे करो, राइट? बट मैं उसको ये बता सकता हूँ कि what is the difference in outcome of this certain thing and something else. So that is again a metric I would say you can judge analysts upon. Also, it goes about a little bit of footballing knowledge and a little bit of understanding of the different tools that you can use and your presentation. अगर आप गेम को और simpler बना रहे हो for players, for coaches, then I think you're doing a decent enough job. But if you are using all the fancy terms in terms of what football more or less is these days, you're just using fancy terms to sound cool and like feel like okay, you know a lot, and people are not understanding any of it, then there's no point of being an analyst.
This was going to be one of my questions, Anand, especially with the advent of XG, XT, expected assists, expected threats, right? Is this something that you incorporate in your daily work? Is that something that you've sort of taken up, or you still sort of are not too focused on these particular stats, right? What is your individual approach to how you analyze matches?
Okay, so in my opinion, Satvik, see, stats are a must. Stats give us a lot of idea about what we might miss from the naked eye, but stats also can be very misleading at times. So let's say again, let's talk about an example. Let's say I play as a defensive midfielder in a team which keeps a lot of possession, and I have a passing percentage of 97%. So just by this, you would say, okay, wow, what a player, But then if I break down those passes and look at the number of progressive or penetrative passes that I'm playing, or the number of back passes or side passes I'm playing, and then you see that, okay, out of 100 passes, 95 passes I've played as backwards or sidewards, then that brings a different, altogether a different context to the data. So data is definitely necessary. It gives us a lot. But data without context is, always more or less, not always, but more or less, it's, most of the times it's misleading. Because let's say another example, I am playing as a striker and you say I have 100% shot accuracy, which means I took 5 shots and 5 were on target. But if you look at those shots, all of my shots were straight to the goalkeeper.
And they were not power.
Yeah, probably from 30 yards. So, again, that data, if you're just saying that, okay, 100% shot accuracy, striker, take him in, you could say that. But then if you look deep dive into it on the context, look at the data, look at the video, watch the player or watch the game live as the full game, then you give much more idea about what the data, should be like. Now, when you talk about XGs and XTs and XAGs and everything, that is again something that is coming new into the sport, and it's taking up a pace much faster than a few years ago. And expected goals is again
Slightly
it
misleading.
yeah, can be misleading again, but we have to also understand that the the sample size of which the XG has been calculated from plays a huge role. So let's say if you are looking at a player's last 15 shots and he has an XG, which is again expected goals, and we can talk about it, a long time. So if he has taken 15 shots and his expected goals is zero point 0.9, which means that 90% of his shots are going to result into a goal. It gives you a different idea as compared to, let's say, somebody whose XG has been calculated over 300 shots. And even if their XG is lesser, I would still prefer, the lesser XG with higher sample size than a higher XG with a lesser sample size. So
Makes sense.
yeah, data is again, part and parcel of the sport, but it's not, like the complete package.
Yeah. So, from someone who works specially with the data, right? एक आजकल बड़ी debate चली हुई, अगर पहले के टाइम में इतना डेटा होता तो शायद players like Zizou, players like Ronaldinho, right? जो who brought a different beauty to different beauty to the sport, right? जो शायद stats कभी रखे भी ना अपने picture में. So where are you on that debate? Do you understand? Are you in favor? What is your opinion on everything that is happening?
Satvik, in my opinion, it's very difficult to compare players of different eras.
Absolutely.
क्योंकि फुटबॉल उस टाइम पे और फुटबॉल आज के टाइम पे बहुत डिफरेंट है. The game is always evolving. And irrespective of the fact that if you or me like it or not, that we don't have another Ronaldinho or Zidane or Maradona, for example, the game will evolve. And at the end of the day, there is again a fresh debate about, what is more important? Is the entertainment aspect of sport more important or the winning aspect of sport more important? So these kind of debates, obviously they exist. But if you ask, in my opinion, the game will evolve. There is a lot of influx of sports science and science going into athletes and match preparation, in terms of, let's say, even in terms of how many players, for example, when we were young, you could barely name 2 to 3 players who would be playing into the late 30s. Maybe it was a Ryan Giggs or a Paul Scholes, or someone like a Paolo Maldini, and maybe Francesco Totti. The 3 or 4 players who played into the late 30s, and usually by the time they were like early 30s, they would have a dip.
430.
But now you are seeing the trend, where the absolute like elite athletes are reaching their prime into their early 30s, which was earlier, in the late 20s. So, football is changing, and like I said, irrespective of if we like it or not, football will evolve or other sports will evolve. And if we are comparing, I don't think it's a extremely fair comparison, because unke time pe football was different, conditions were different, the ball was different, playing field was different, and yeah, so not ideal to compare them. But of course, there is a nostalgic fact about it as well. When the people that you have watched growing up when you were young, you are more inclined to having that idea towards your footballing ideology.
Makes sense. And I just probably 5-10 minutes more if that is all right with you, right? Yeah. So talking about evolvement of, let's say, the analytics side of things, right? मैं अगर आज के टाइम में प्रीमियर लीग को कंपेयर करूं और ISL को कंपेयर करूं, right? Does approach to analysis differ a lot in both the leagues because the quality varies a lot, or because analysis के principles same, and does it remain the same?
So again, good question. So more or less, I think the aspects of analysis remain the same, but the difference arises in the investment. When you have a Manchester United and then you compare it to, let's say, Mumbai City, of course Manchester United can spend more and more money to have more and more background staff. So then the work gets divided on opposition analyst, set piece analyst, attacking analyst, defending analyst, or different kinds of analysts. But the more or less the idea, the The tools, the methodology, they remain the same. And it could be that the department of analysis is more structured. When you walk into an established analysis department, you already have your fixed role, that okay, you need to do this, at this time. But when you're walking into a club and you are the only analyst there, it's up to you to decide, which again you have to put in the head coach in the loop, and assistant coaches in the loop, other people in the loop, and it's up to you to decide where and what needs to be done. So that is again different aspect to it, and of course the financial constraints come into the picture. So you cannot expect a club which is struggling financially to spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees on GPS devices, or licensed extremely expensive licensed software. So you have to work your way around it, but then it's not like analysis is on the top level is something that's happening on the moon. They are also doing the same thing, we're also doing the same thing, but it's more structured and more in depth, I would say.
So let's say if Premier League is on 10, right? What number would ISL be on in terms of the use of football analysis?
Difficult. I mean, if Premier League is a 10 on 10, and you are telling me that okay, Premier League has maybe 3 to 4 to 5 analysts working for one team, I think ISL would be at a decent 5 or 6-ish level, where ISL still, like, we tend to compare ISL with all the top leagues in the world, whereas if we compare ISL with the top leagues in Asia, it's doing fairly well. The amount of money that has been invested in, and the amount of money that flows. We look at the top players from the Australian A League coming over to the ISL, and a lot of foreign coaches with big experience and good pedigree coming into the ISL again. So I think it's not that far off if you compare to other leagues in the world, but if you compare it to like the top 4 or top 5 leagues in the world, there is a little bit of difference.
Understood. And Anand, how evolved is football analysis in India in general, right? What is the scope, right? If I am an aspiring analyst, I'm a 17, 18-year-old wanting to be a football analyst. Do I have a life? Do I have a career in football analysis? And can I make a proper living, right, out of football analysis in India?
I mean, why not? Why not? You have to try to upskill yourself, upgrade yourself. Like I said previously, show your work to different people, reach out to people. And if you're just wanting to start out, one of the best advice that I got, and I also like to give to young analysts or coaches, that always try to analyze games locally. Because if I'm a young analyst and I'm writing about like Manchester United versus Brighton Hove Albion after this game, there is already like hundreds of articles or hundreds of content that is already there on the internet, and there is more likely that your article is going to come down in the pecking order than the top analysts who are weekly doing this. But let's say you do an extensive match analysis on Shillong Lechong versus East Bengal, which recently concluded the match. How many analysis report do you have on the internet about Shillong Lechong versus East Bengal? Probably none. So that is where you need to start off locally. Also, it's not necessary to get like a paid gig straight away. Go out and reach out to a local club, local academy. Just take your phone camera, record the match, try to use the tools, try to characterize your report, show it to the coach, get some feedback, try to improve on how this could have been a little bit better, and then you go on from there. And it's again, football is not an industry where it's not like people usually confuse it like let's say like a graduate from MBA or a graduate from engineering. Okay, you have graduated and then companies will come and hire you. It's not like that. You have to basically earn your place by having internships, by building a network, which again comes from doing in regular kind of exposure to your work, showing your work to different people, and then of course trying to upskill and upgrade on a daily basis.
Understood. Anand, I've been meaning to ask, is there a story to the two jerseys that are behind you?
Oh, of course. So this one is from the women's national team, and this was signed by all the players, so it's very close to my heart. I always carry it, everywhere I go. And this one is Paul Scholes' vintage jersey. I think from the season he made his debut, and this was again I think from 1992-93 season where he played his first games in the FA Cup against Port Vale. So that was like, this is one of the vintage jerseys that I own. So I just put it out there to match the level of, your background, maybe if you could call it.
Are you a United fan?
Yes, big time United fan.
Then I'm very sorry for today.
This is a part and parcel of the job, part and parcel of being a United fan. You get disappointed every week.
Yeah. Okay. Anand, on a concluding couple of things, right? Just on all about to end the episode, right? Now, what is next for you? Can you tell you've just recently joined the Bhutan Football Federation, right? Can you tell us what capacity are you working with in the Bhutan Football Federation?
So I've joined here as the head of analysis.
Okay.
And like I mentioned before, the technical director in Sudeva, Mr. Chencho, he joined as the technical director here in Bhutan Football Federation because he's a Bhutanese, and then he was the one who pitched me this idea that we are starting off. So football in Bhutan is of course a little bit behind India in terms of structure, but we do have a league, we have a women's league, we have a youth league, and everything is going in the right direction. So they wanted someone to come in and set up the analysis department and get a couple of people working in the analysis department, working with the different teams, and basically having an overview of how we can again objectively work towards the development of the next generation of Bhutanese footballers. So when I was presented with the plan, I thought it was a good project that I can contribute towards. And again, it's a new experience for me because it's not so easy for us as Indians to go out abroad as players or coaches or analysts. I know Shlok is doing it now in Japan, and I think I'm doing it here in Bhutan, and that's pretty much it. So it was an opportunity that I felt is the right step in my career. And then I felt like this is something that I'm ready for the responsibility to lead the department, lead the team in football analytics. And I thought, why not? Different culture, different experience, different football. So yeah, here I am.
And how the first impression been? You've been here for what, one month, if I'm not wrong, 1 or 2 months?
Little less than 1 month.
Okay.
Almost 3 weeks, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks. So more or less, I think there is a little gap between the technical ability of the players, which is okay, maybe at the senior level, but at the under 20 level. So in the under 20 championship, we just lost to India. Yes, in 1-0. And we really had some really good chances in the game, and it could have been 1-1 or even 2-1 for that matter. And we are playing the semi-final against Bangladesh next month. So the football is growing. It's on the right trajectory, I would say. And it's not anymore that, Bhutan are the minnows of South Asian football. It's not like 5 years ago where, Bhutanese national team used to get thrashed 5-6-0 by every other team. And we are getting there. We are being competitive, and there's a wide influx of different coaches from different nationalities in the federation. So we have a couple of Japanese coaches. We have a couple of Korean coaches. We have an English coach. We have an Australian coach, and the kind of direction that this project is heading towards, I am really really hopeful for it, and that is I think is trying to reduce the level of top level Asian football at least, and Bhutanese football.
So last question, Anand. What's next for you, right? जो आपने पहले बोला था कि I don't think so I've made it while I have not had that right probably right now. What probably in the future would make you think that you've made it? What is that ultimate aspiration?
Probably nothing, So it's not like I have an ultimate goal of being there or doing this or doing that. I just want to keep we both are, we're football fanatics, man. So just keep on to learning more and more, and keep upgrading myself and trying to help out the team, and as much as possible in any aspect. Even if when I was like in different teams, and in the training I didn't have to do anything, I would still be on the pitch collecting balls, collecting balls, giving it to the coaches, helping the players, picking up water bottles for that matter. I love the sport. I love the sport. I love to be around the sport. So I just feel like, I believe in, doing hard work and keeping my head down and not letting the occasion get to me, irrespective of where I am. And that is what I believe, in going forward as well. If an opportunity, comes to work somewhere else at a higher level, I would definitely think about it. But I'm very, happy that I'm here and hoping to do good things for Bhutan football in the coming years.
Perfect. Anand, again, I've kept you with me for a very, very long time. But again, I did not even realize it went on for 70 odd minutes. But again, as I mentioned to you already, I had wanted to do this podcast for a very long time. So again, I'm glad you were able to take out time, and I think it was a brilliant chat. I love what you had to offer, both in terms of knowledge and just the absolute passion I think I could make from just a small conversation that we've had. And I think, बड़ा simple है for Indian football to grow. I think more people would have to have that passion, right? And I think it's Indian football probably आते 8-10 सालों में will achieve that what everyone is hoping for. So yeah, thank you so much, Anand. It was a lovely conversation, and thank you for having. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Satvik, for again inviting me. It was amazing talking to you. Hopefully, we get on together sometime later as well, maybe in person. And yeah, thank you. Keep up your good work, and I'm looking forward to having listening to more episodes from you.
Perfect. Thanks, Anand. I'll just stop the recording. Thank you so much.